The message from Earth was simple and direct. It arrived at the Galactic Council's main station on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. The alien operators who received it expected something long and flowery, like most first contact messages. Instead, they got 23 words. "We got your invitation to join the galaxy. Our people will come to your station in 30 days. Thank you for waiting." That was it. No fancy language. No promises of peace and friendship forever. No begging to be accepted. Just a simple statement that made the council members nervous. For reasons they could not explain, Ambassador Veshka of the Valenthi people read the message 3 times. Her large gentle eyes blinked slowly as she tried to understand why such simple words felt so dangerous. The Valenthi had been part of the Galactic Council for over 200 years. They knew how first contact was supposed to work. New species always sent long messages full of hope and fear. They talked about their dreams of peace. They shared their art and music. They begged the older species to accept them and teach them the ways of galactic civilization. But not these humans from Earth. The Council decided to prepare anyway. They sent their best diplomats to Station Nexus 7, the galaxy's most beautiful meeting place. The station floated in space like a giant flower made of crystal and metal. Its halls were filled with soft lights and gentle music that was supposed to make everyone feel calm and happy. 12 different alien species came to welcome Earth's first ambassadors. The crystalline beings brought their singing crystals. The cloud-like ethereals brought their light shows. The insect-like Krell brought their honor guards, though they kept their weapons hidden out of politeness. Everyone expected the humans to be like the other new species they had met before. Maybe they would be small and weak, like the Pixari. Maybe they would be tall and thin, like the Bengali. All the peaceful species in the galaxy shared certain features that made them easy to live with. But when the human ship arrived, things felt different right away. The ship itself was wrong. It was not round and soft like most peaceful species built. It was long and sharp, like a spear pointed at the station. Its metal skin was dark gray, the color of storm clouds. When it moved fast and straight, like a hunting animal. "That does not look like a ship built for exploring," whispered Zithma of the Crystalline Consortium to his aide. His crystal body flickered with nervous blue light. The docking process was smooth but strange. Most new species took a long time to dock, checking and double-checking everything. They were usually so excited or scared that they made small mistakes. The human ship docked perfectly on the first try, like they had done it 1,000 times before. Then the humans came out. Ambassador Li Dongwu stepped through the airlock first. He was not very tall, but the way he moved made him seem bigger than he was. His dark eyes looked around the welcome hall once, taking in everything where the exits were, who was standing where, what the lighting was like. It took him less than 3 seconds, but Deshka could tell he had seen everything important. Behind him came Park Hyensu, who was introduced as their military advisor. He was taller and wider than Li, with the thick muscles of someone who had spent years training his body. But it was not his size that made the aliens step back. It was the way he stood, perfectly still, perfectly balanced. Like a stone that could explode into motion at any moment. The third human was Kim So-young, their trade specialist. She was smaller than the 2 men, with a quick smile and bright eyes, but her eyes never stopped moving. While she smiled and nodded at the welcoming committee, her gaze was already studying the alien technology. The guard positions, the communication devices. "Welcome to Station Nexus 7, said Ambassador Veshka, in her most gentle voice. "We are so happy that Earth has decided to join our peaceful community of worlds." Li Dongwu smiled. It was a pleasant smile, but it did not reach his eyes. "Thank you for having us. We look forward to learning about your civilization." The words were perfectly polite. The tone was friendly. But something about the way he said learning made it sound like he was planning to study them for weaknesses. The welcome ceremony began as planned. Each alien species performed their traditional greeting. The Valenthi sang a soft harmony about peace and friendship. The ethereals created beautiful patterns of colored light. The crystallines rang like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. The humans watched everything with careful attention. They did not seem amazed or confused like most new species. They did not ask excited questions about the technology or the cultures. They just watched and remembered. When it was time for the humans to perform their greeting, Li Dongwu stepped forward. On Earth, we have a saying, he began. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. This means that when you visit someone else's home, you should respect their ways. The aliens nodded happily. This sounded exactly like what a peaceful species should say, but, Li continued, we also believe that true friendship comes from honesty. So we want you to know who we really are. He gestured to his companions. We are not like the other species you have met. We did not come from a world of gentle meadows or peaceful forests. Earth is a world where life fights to survive every day. We are the species that climbed to the top of that fight. The room became very quiet. Several of the smaller alien species moved closer to their guards without even realizing it. We come here in peace, Li said, his voice calm and steady. We want to trade with you, learn from you, and share what we know, but we want you to understand something important. On Earth, peace is not our natural state. Peace is a choice we make every day because we are strong enough to make it. Park Hyen-soo had not moved or spoken, but somehow his presence seemed to fill the room. Kim So-young was still smiling, but now her smile looked like she knew secrets that could change everything. We hope you will choose to be our friends, Li finished. Because we are very good friends to have. The welcome ceremony ended in uncomfortable silence. As the different species left the hall to prepare for the real negotiations, they whispered among themselves. Did you see their eyes? Asked one ethereal to another. They face forward, like hunters. Their teeth, whispered a crystalline. When they smiled, I could see their teeth. They are pointed. But it was Veshka who spoke the words that everyone was thinking, but nobody wanted to say out loud. I do not think they came here to join us, she said to her aide as they walked away. I think they came here to decide if they want to let us continue existing. The humans stood alone in the welcome hall, watching the aliens leave. Li Dongwu turned to his companions. Well, he said quietly in Korean, that went better than expected. Kim So-young checked her tablet. I counted 17 different ways they could defend this station. None of them would work. Park Hyen-soo finally spoke, his voice like distant thunder. They are afraid already. Good fear makes people careful. Careful people make fewer mistakes. Li nodded and straightened his diplomatic suit. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. None of the aliens realized it yet, but the galaxy had just met its new apex predators. And these predators wore suits and smiled when they introduced themselves. The first formal meeting was scheduled for the next morning. Ambassador Veshka arrived early to prepare the conference room, according to ancient galactic tradition. The room needed to be perfect for proper negotiations. She arranged 12 different types of ceremonial flowers around the circular table. Each flower represented one of the core values of galactic civilization: peace, harmony, patience, understanding, and 8 others that had guided diplomatic relations for over 1,000 years. Next came the incense burners. 7 different scents would burn during the meeting, each one designed to calm the mind and reduce aggressive thoughts. The lighting was set to a soft golden glow that made everyone look peaceful and friendly. The seating arrangement took another hour to prepare. Each chair was positioned according to the status, age, and cultural needs of each species. The newest species always sat in the learning position, facing the elder species who would guide them through their first galactic negotiation. Zithma of the Crystalline Consortium arrived next, his crystal body singing softly with contentment. Ha, Deshka, he hummed. You have prepared the room beautifully. The humans will surely feel the peace that flows through this space. Other ambassadors began arriving, each one adding their own small touches to the ceremony. The brought floating lights that danced slowly through the air. The cloud-like Serenity Collective released gentle mists that smelled like spring rain. Even the insect-like Krell added their contribution, tiny harmonic crystals that made quiet music when the air moved around them by the time everything was ready. The room looked like a temple dedicated to peace itself. The aliens took their seats and began the traditional pre-negotiation meditation. This normally lasted for 1 full hour, giving everyone time to clear their minds of selfish thoughts and prepare for discussions that would benefit all species equally. The humans were exactly on time. Lee Dong-woo walked into the room first, followed by Kim So-young and Park Hyun-suk. They stopped just inside the doorway and looked around at all the preparations. Their faces showed no emotion at all. "Please," said Deshka gently, "take your seats in the learning circle. We will begin with the hour of inner peace, followed by the ceremony of mutual understanding." "Then the no," said Lee Dong-woo. The word hit the room like a physical blow. In over 1,000 years of galactic diplomacy, no species had ever interrupted the explanation of proper negotiation protocol. "I'm sorry," Veshka blinked her large eyes in confusion. "We said no," Lee repeated calmly. "We appreciate your traditions, but Earth operates on a different schedule." He walked to the table and remained standing. In galactic culture, standing during negotiations was considered extremely rude. It suggested that you thought you were superior to everyone else in the room. "Here is what we propose," Lee continued, his voice perfectly polite but absolutely firm. "You tell us what you want from Earth. We tell you what Earth wants from you. Then we make a deal that works for everyone, or we don't make a deal at all. Both outcomes are fine with us." The aliens stared at him in shock. Zithma's crystal body flickered rapidly between colors, a sign of deep distress. But the ceremonies, the proper forms. The 17 steps of gradual understanding. Kim So-young opened a tablet and began reading from it. "The crystalline consortium controls 47% of the galaxy's rare mineral trade. Your biggest competitor is the Benderly Mining Corporation, who offers the same minerals at 12% lower cost, but with longer delivery times." She looked up from her tablet with a bright smile. "Your third largest customer, the Mechanical Union, has been talking to the Benderly for 6 months about switching suppliers. They're waiting to see if you'll lower your prices before they make their decision." Zithma's crystal body went completely white with shock. "How do you— We have never shared that information with anyone. You also have a problem with pirates attacking your shipments in the outer spiral," Kim continued cheerfully. 37 attacks in the last year, with losses totaling about 4 million credits. Your security budget has increased by 60%, but the attacks are getting worse, not better." She closed her tablet and smiled at the stunned alien. "Earth has extensive experience dealing with pirates. We could help you solve that problem permanently. In exchange, we'd like preferential pricing on rare earth elements that are common in your territory but expensive for us to mine at home." The room was dead silent. This was not how negotiations were supposed to work. New species were supposed to be humble and grateful, not confident and well-informed. Ambassador Veltar of the Ethereal Collective tried to restore proper protocol. "Young humans," he said in his most patient voice, "we understand your eagerness. But galactic diplomacy requires respect." Park Hyun-suk spoke for the first time since entering the room. His voice was quiet, but it seemed to come from deep underground. "Yes, we understand respect." He was still standing behind Lee, perfectly motionless, but somehow his presence filled the entire room. "In our culture, respect means being honest about what you can do and what you will do. It means not wasting each other's time with empty ceremonies." Park's eyes moved slowly around the table, meeting each alien ambassador's gaze for exactly 3 seconds. Most of them looked away first. "We respect you enough to tell you the truth," he continued. "Earth doesn't need your friendship to survive. We want to trade with you because trade benefits everyone. But if you prefer empty rituals to real business," he shrugged, a gesture that somehow suggested that he had many other ways to spend his time. Veshka tried desperately to regain control of the situation. "Perhaps we could begin with something simple. A basic trade agreement for cultural artifacts." Many species find this a good way to start, ... Lee Dongwoo nodded. Cultural artifacts. Interesting. He looked at Kim, who was already pulling up new information on her tablet. The galactic market for cultural artifacts is worth about 50 billion credits annually, Kim said. Earth has several items that would be completely unique to your markets. Original music, art, literature, and entertainment that no alien species has ever experienced. She showed them her tablet screen, which displayed a series of charts and graphs. However, we've noticed that most species prefer art that supports their existing worldview. Peaceful species like peaceful art. Gentle species like gentle stories. Her smile became somehow sharper. Earth's cultural products are ... different. Our most popular stories are about conflict, survival, and winning against impossible odds. Our music often deals with war, heartbreak, and overcoming enemies. Our art frequently shows the beauty of dangerous things. We're not sure your populations would understand our culture, Lee added thoughtfully. It might be too intense for species that have never faced real predators. The insult was delivered so politely that it took several seconds for the aliens to realize they had been insulted. When they did, the reactions were immediate. Vorthak of the Krell military caste stood up abruptly, his insect-like body clicking with anger. Are you suggesting that the Krell are weak? We have conquered 17 star systems. Park Hyensu looked at him with mild interest. Conquered from whom? From ... from other peaceful species who needed our protection ... So you conquered people who couldn't fight back, Park said calmly. On Earth, we have a word for that. He didn't say what the word was, but everyone in the room understood that it was not a compliment. Kim So-young quickly stepped in before the Krell delegate could respond. Of course, we could start with some of our gentler cultural products. Earth has many beautiful things that celebrate peace and cooperation. She pulled up a new screen on her tablet. For example, we have wonderful stories about families working together to survive in hostile environments. Or music about soldiers coming home from war and learning to live in peace again. These show both our strength and our desire for harmony. The aliens slowly sat back down, unsure how to respond. These humans had somehow turned a simple discussion about trading artwork into a demonstration of power. Lee Dongwoo checked his watch. We've been here for 43 minutes, he said. In that time, we've identified 3 profitable trade opportunities and solved one major security problem. On Earth, this would be considered a very productive meeting. He looked around the table at the confused and slightly frightened alien faces. Shall we continue with the rest of your agenda, or would you prefer to take a break to discuss what we've covered so far? Diska realized that in less than an hour, these humans had completely destroyed 1,000 years of diplomatic tradition and somehow made it seem like they were doing everyone a favor. Perhaps, she said weakly, we should take a short recess. As the aliens filed out of the room, whispering frantically to each other, the humans remained seated at the table. That went well, said Lee in Korean. Kim was already making notes on her tablet. They're scared, but interested. The Krell will definitely want our help with their pirate problem. The Krell are angry, which means they're taking us seriously. Park Hyensu cracked his knuckles, a sound that somehow seemed threatening even in the empty room. They thought they were interviewing us to see if we were suitable for their club, he said quietly. They're just now realizing that we've been interviewing them. Outside in the hallway, Ambassador Veshka was having the same realization. They're not here to join us, she whispered to Zithma. They're here to decide what to do with us. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council happened 3 hours after the humans had their first negotiation session. Ambassador Veshka called it after spending 2 hours trying to understand what had just happened to 1,000 years of diplomatic tradition. 12 alien species gathered in the private council chamber, a room that was supposed to be secret from all non-member species. They sat in a tight circle, their voices low and worried. They knew everything about our trade routes, whispered Zithma, his crystal body still flickering with nervous energy. Information that we have never shared with anyone outside our own government. They spoke to us like we were children, added Veltar, of the ethereal collective. No new species has ever shown such arrogance. But it was Vorthak of the Krell who spoke the words that everyone was thinking. They are dangerous, he said, his insect-like mandibles clicking with anger. These humans think they can walk into our galaxy and take whatever they want. Vorthak was the military representative of the Krell hegemony, the most powerful military force in the galaxy. For 300 years, the Krell had kept peace by being strong enough to crush anyone who caused trouble. They were not used to feeling threatened. Something must be done, Vorthak continued. These humans must learn their place in the galactic order. Veshka's gentle nature made her uncomfortable with such aggressive talk. Perhaps we should try to understand them better before we understand them. Vorthak's voice rose to a harsh buzz. I understand them perfectly. They are predators who think they can intimidate civilized species. But they have made one critical mistake. He stood up, his tall insect body towering over the other ambassadors. They think that, because we are peaceful, we are weak. They do not know that the Krell have been protecting this galaxy since before their planet had spaceflight. The other ambassadors looked at each other nervously. They all knew that when the Krell decided someone needed to be taught a lesson, that lesson was usually painful. What are you suggesting? Asked Zithmar carefully. A demonstration, Vorthak replied. Nothing permanent. Nothing that would cause a real war. Just something to show these humans that they are not the strongest species in this galaxy. 3 hours later, Vorthak made his move. The next day's council session was supposed to be about establishing regular trade routes between Earth and the various alien worlds. The humans arrived exactly on time, looking calm and professional in their dark suits. Li Dongwu took his seat at the negotiation table and opened his folder of documents. Good morning, everyone. I believe today we're discussing the establishment of. Before we begin, Vorthak interrupted, his voice loud and commanding. There is an urgent matter that requires immediate attention. He activated a holographic display that showed a star map of the local region. Several red dots appeared on the map, marking locations in space. It has come to our attention, Vorthak announced, that several Earth merchant vessels have entered Krell space without proper authorization. According to galactic law, these ships must be detained and inspected before they can continue their journey. The room became very quiet. Everyone knew this was not really about unauthorized ships. This was Vorthak's way of testing the humans, of showing them who had real power in this galaxy. Li Dongwu looked at the star map for exactly 5 seconds. Then he looked back at Vorthak with a calm expression. I see, Li said quietly. And how long do you expect this inspection to take? That depends, Vorthak replied with satisfaction, on how cooperative your crews decide to be. The threat was clear to everyone in the room. The Krell were holding human ships hostage until Earth agreed to be more respectful in future negotiations. Li Dongwu nodded thoughtfully. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small communication device. He pressed a button and began speaking in Korean to someone who was not in the room. The conversation lasted exactly 30 seconds. Li's voice was calm and quiet, as if he was ordering lunch instead of responding to an act of war. When he finished, he put the device away and looked back at Vorthak with the same pleasant expression he had worn all morning. Delegate Li said politely, I've just spoken with Admiral Choi Minho of the Earth Defense Fleet. He wanted me to thank you for bringing this matter to our attention. Vorthak's mandibles clicked with confusion. This was not the response he had expected. The Admiral has informed me, Li continued, that Earth has been looking for opportunities to survey the asteroid fields in your home system. Apparently, your region has some very interesting mineral deposits that our scientists would like to study. Kim Soyoung pulled out her tablet and began reading from it. According to our long-range sensors, the Krell home system has approximately 1,000 asteroids larger than 1 kilometer in diameter. Many of these appear to contain rare metals that would be very valuable for our industrial programs. What are you talking about? Vorthak demanded. Our survey fleet should arrive in your system in about 6 hours, Lee said cheerfully. Be conducting detailed scans of your asteroid belt to determine which rocks would be most suitable for mining operations. The blood drained from Vorthak's face. You cannot threaten our home system. Oh, there's no threat, Kim Soyoung said. With a bright smile. Our ships are simply exercising the same right of inspection that you've claimed over our merchant vessels. I'm sure your orbital defense platforms will find our survey methods very educational. The room erupted in shocked whispers. No one had directly challenged the Krell military in over 3 centuries. These humans had just done it with the same tone they might use to discuss the weather. Furthermore, Lee added calmly, Admiral Choi wanted me to mention that our survey ships are equipped with the latest Earth technology for asteroid analysis. Some of our tools can examine rocks from quite a distance, up to several thousand kilometers away. Park Hyansu spoke for the first time that day, his voice like distant thunder. In our experience, ships that are detained often develop mechanical problems. Engines fail. Life support systems malfunction. Communication equipment breaks down. He looked directly at Vorthak. It would be very unfortunate if such problems occurred before proper rescue operations could be mounted. The meaning was crystal clear. If the Krell harmed the human merchant ships, the Earth fleet would turn the Krell home system into a debris field. You're bluffing, Vorthak said. But his voice lacked conviction. Lee Dongwoo pulled out his communication device again. Would you like me to ask Admiral Choi to provide you with a detailed list of his fleet's capabilities? I'm sure he would be happy to demonstrate them. Or, Kim So-young added helpfully, we could continue with today's scheduled discussion about trade routes. I believe mutual commerce benefits everyone much more than mutual destruction. Vorthak stared at the 3 humans, his insect eyes wide with shock and growing fear. These creatures had just threatened to destroy his entire civilization, and they looked as calm as if they were discussing lunch plans. The inspection of your ships will be completed within the hour, Vorthak said quietly. Excellent, Lee replied. I'll let Admiral Choi know that his survey mission is no longer needed. He pressed his communication device one more time and spoke, briefly in Korean. When he finished, he looked around the table at the stunned alien faces. Now then, he said pleasantly, shall we discuss those trade routes? For the next 2 hours, the negotiations proceeded smoothly. The aliens made reasonable offers, and the humans made reasonable counteroffers. Everyone was polite and professional. But underneath the civilized discussion, every alien in the room understood what had just happened. The humans had not just defeated the Krell's challenge, they had done it so completely and so effortlessly that it looked easy. Worse, they had done it without raising their voices or making dramatic threats. They had simply explained, in calm and reasonable tones, exactly how they would destroy anyone who interfered with their interests. As the meeting ended and the various species began to leave, Veshka found herself walking beside Lee Dongwoo. Toward the exit, Ambassador Lee, she said quietly, may I ask you something? Of course. Do you really have a fleet powerful enough to destroy the Krell home system? Lee Dongwoo paused at the doorway and looked back at her with those forward-facing predator eyes. Ambassador Cheska, he said gently. That's the wrong question. What's the right question? The right question is, why do you think we would need a fleet? He smiled pleasantly and walked away, leaving Veshka standing alone in the hallway, trying to understand what he meant. Behind her, she could hear Vorthak frantically speaking into his own communication device, ordering the immediate release. Of all human merchant ships, the Krell had just learned something that would change their entire understanding of galactic politics. There were some species that were so dangerous you didn't fight them even when you thought you could win, because the cost of being wrong was too high to survive. The news of what happened between the humans and the Krell spread through the galaxy faster than lightspeed communication. Within days, every major species knew that the new arrivals from Earth had somehow forced the mighty Krell military to back down without firing a single shot. But most alien species misunderstood what they were hearing in the elegant halls of the ethereal collective's homeworld. The Council of Wisps gathered to discuss the situation. Their translucent bodies glowed with soft blue light as they floated in their crystal chamber. The humans made empty threats, declared Elder Seraphim, his voice like wind through silver bells. The Krell was simply being cautious. No species would actually attack a home world over a few detained merchant ships. The other ethereals hummed in agreement. They had ruled their part of the galaxy through careful manipulation and economic pressure for over 500 years. They understood that real power came from controlling resources and information, not from crude military threats. "These humans are like children playing with toys they do not understand," said another elder. "They think loud words and angry faces will make civilized species fear them. We must teach them how galactic politics really works." Elder Seraphim-esque form brightened with satisfaction. Yes, they need to learn that in this galaxy, true power belongs to those who control the flow of knowledge and wealth. Military strength is meaningless against proper economic warfare. The Ethereal Collective began their campaign against Earth immediately. It started small. Human trade ships found that their cargo manifests were mysteriously delayed at inspection. Stations controlled by ethereal allies. Communication requests from Earth diplomats were lost in bureaucratic systems. Applications for mining rights in mineral-rich systems were somehow filed incorrectly and had to be resubmitted multiple times. Within 2 weeks, the pressure campaign escalated. The ethereals used their influence with the galactic banking system to freeze Earth's trade credits. They convinced their allied species to impose temporary restrictions on human ships entering their territory. They spread rumors that Earth's technology was dangerous and unreliable. The goal was simple: isolate the humans economically and socially until they became desperate enough to accept a subordinate position in galactic society. For 3 weeks, the plan seemed to work perfectly. Human trade slowed to almost nothing. Their diplomatic requests were ignored or rejected. Several alien species that had been interested in establishing relationships with Earth suddenly became too busy to schedule meetings. The ethereals congratulated themselves on a job well done. They expected the humans to come begging for mercy. Within days, instead, things began going wrong in ways that made no sense. It started with small technical failures. A major ethereal communication relay station experienced a computer malfunction that took it offline for 6 hours. The problem was traced to a software error that should have been impossible. The station's security systems were the most advanced in the galaxy. 2 days later, an ethereal trade convoy carrying rare crystals to their biggest customer suffered a navigation system failure. The ships ended up 3 light-years off course and arrived a week late. The customer was furious and threatened to cancel future contracts. Then the collective's main data processing center was hit by what appeared to be a virus that corrupted financial records for thousands of transactions. It took their best technicians for days to fix the damage and restore the lost information. Each incident was explained away as bad luck or equipment failure. But Elder Seraphim was beginning to notice a pattern. Every malfunction hurt the ethereal collective's ability to maintain their economic pressure on Earth. The pattern became impossible to ignore when their secret communication network was compromised. The ethereals had spent centuries building a hidden network that allowed them to coordinate their political activities without other species knowing what they were planning. The network used quantum encryption that was supposed to be unbreakable. One morning, Elder Seraphim received a message through this ultra-secure system. The message was simple and polite. "Good morning, Elder Seraphim. We hope you are having a pleasant day. We wanted you to know that your communication network has some interesting security vulnerabilities. We have attached a detailed technical report for your review. Your friends from Earth." The attached file contained a complete breakdown of every encryption method, hidden relay station, and security protocol the ethereals had used to keep their network secret. It also included recordings of their private conversations about the campaign against humanity. Elder Seraphim stared at the message in horror. If the humans could break their most secure communications, what else could they do? He got his answer 3 days later. The humans announced that they were hosting a dinner party for all the major galactic ambassadors. The invitation was delivered through normal diplomatic channels and was perfectly polite, but every species that had participated in the economic warfare against Earth received a special addition to their invitation. The addition was a small data file that contained detailed information about their recent activities against human interests, bank records, communication logs, secret meeting transcripts, everything the humans needed to prove that several species had conspired to isolate Earth economically. The message that came with the files was typically human, direct, and terrifying. In its simplicity, "We know what you have been doing. We have always known. We wanted to give you a chance to reconsider your approach before we responded." The dinner party tomorrow evening would be an excellent opportunity to discuss more productive forms of cooperation. 24 hours later, every major ambassador in the galaxy sat around a large table in the humans' diplomatic quarters. The room was decorated simply but elegantly, with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. It could have been a pleasant social gathering except for the tension that filled the air like electricity before a storm. Lee Dongwu stood at the head of the table, wearing his usual dark suit and pleasant smile. "Thank you all for coming," he said warmly. "We thought it would be nice to share a meal and get to know each other better." The dinner itself was a carefully planned demonstration of human culture. Every dish was meat-based, showcasing Earth's relationship with the food chain. The main course was something called steak, large portions of muscle tissue from Earth animals, cooked rare so that red juices still flowed when cut. As the aliens awkwardly tried to eat food that reminded them, uncomfortably, of their own mortality, Lee made casual conversation about Earth's history. "On our world," he said, while cutting his steak with precise controlled movements, "we had an interesting period called the Cold War. Two groups of humans built enough nuclear weapons to destroy all life on Earth several times over." Park Hyansu, who had been silent through most of the meal, added quietly, "The weapons were never used. Both sides understood that any attack would result in complete mutual destruction. It kept the peace for decades," Kim So-young said cheerfully while taking a bite of her perfectly cooked meat. "Everyone knew the cost of aggression, so no one was willing to pay it." Elder Seraphim's translucent form flickered nervously. "That seems inefficient. Surely rational beings could find better ways to resolve their differences." Lee smiled. "Oh, we did find better ways. Much better ways." He gestured to Park Hyansu, who activated a holographic display above the dinner table. The display showed a three-dimensional map of the local galaxy, with trade routes, communication networks, and defense installations marked in different colors. "Earth has been in your galaxy for exactly 37 days, Lee said calmly. "In that time, we have mapped every major piece of infrastructure that keeps your civilization running." The display zoomed in on different sections of the galaxy, showing incredible detail about military bases, power plants, communication hubs, and financial centers that were supposed to be secret. "We know where your children go to school," Kim So-young added with her bright smile. "We know which planets grow your food. We know how your money moves from one world to another. We know everything," Park Hyansu said simply. The holographic display changed to show Earth's defensive positions. Weapons platforms, fleet positions, and shield generators appeared as green dots scattered throughout human space. "Of course," Lee continued, "we also want you to know about our defensive capabilities. We believe in transparency between friends." But as the aliens studied the display, they realized something terrifying. Earth's defenses were not designed to protect human territory from invasion. They were positioned to attack critical infrastructure. Throughout the galaxy, if Earth wanted to destroy galactic civilization, they could do it without conquering a single planet. They would just turn off the lights, stop the food shipments, and cut the communication lines. Trillions of beings would die not from weapons but from the collapse of the complex systems that kept them alive. "This is madness," whispered Zithma, his crystal body pale with fear. "You could kill everyone in the galaxy." "Yes," Lee agreed pleasantly. "We could, But we don't want to. We want to trade with you, learn from you, and build something better together. He stood up and raised his glass of wine. That's why we're here tonight. We want to make sure everyone understands the situation clearly, so we can move forward as friends instead of enemies. The toast was drunk in absolute silence. As the dinner ended and the shaken ambassadors prepared to leave, Deshka approached Li Dongwu one last time. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why show us this? Why not just use your power in secret?" Li looked at her with those predator eyes, but his expression was almost sad. "Because, Ambassador Veshka, we learned something important during our Cold War. Fear only works if people know what they should be afraid of. We want you to be afraid enough to choose cooperation over conflict. And if we choose conflict anyway." Li Dongwu finished the last of his wine and set down his glass. "Then you will discover why Earth didn't send diplomats to your galaxy," he said quietly. "We sent apex predators who learned how to wear suits and shake hands instead of using claws and teeth. The suits and handshakes work better," Park Hyansu added from behind them. "But the claws and teeth are still there."
6 months after the humans arrived in galactic space, the quarterly meeting of the Galactic Council looked very different than it had before. The same species attended, the same ceremonial decorations filled the Great Hall, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Ambassador Vishka arrived early, as she always did, but instead of arranging flowers and incense for hours of peaceful meditation, she spent her time reviewing security reports and economic data. The galaxy had become a much more dangerous place since Earth joined the community, but it had also become more prosperous. The changes were visible everywhere. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for decades were now completely safe. Ancient territorial disputes between species had been quietly resolved. Several wars that had been brewing for years simply never started, but the most obvious change was in how the different species treated each other. The old patterns of domination and submission had been replaced by something that looked like respect but felt like fear. When the meeting began, Li Dongwu took his place at the table, with the same calm confidence he had shown on his first day. But now, instead of sitting in the learning position designated for new species, he sat at the head of the table in the chair reserved for the most senior ambassador. No one had formally given him that seat. He had simply started sitting there 3 months ago, and no one had been brave enough to object. "Before we begin with today's agenda," Li announced, "Earth would like to present a proposal for the Council's consideration." He activated a holographic display that showed a detailed star map of the entire galaxy. Unlike the maps they had seen before, this one showed things that most species preferred to keep secret: hidden military bases, secret research facilities, and the true extent of each civilization's territory. Over the past 6 months, Li continued in his pleasant, matter-of-fact tone. "We have noticed that several species in this galaxy face security challenges that they are unable to handle alone." The display zoomed in on the Outer Rim territories, where 3 different species were being slowly destroyed by a coalition of pirate fleets. "The Bendali Confederation has lost 47 merchant ships this year," Kim So-young added, reading from her ever-present tablet. "The gentlefolk have abandoned 6 colony worlds because they cannot protect them. The Crystalline Consortium's trade revenues have dropped by 31% due to shipping losses." Park Hyansu stood up and walked to the holographic display. With a gesture, he highlighted dozens of red dots scattered throughout the galaxy. "These represent active threats to galactic stability," he said in his quiet, dangerous voice. "Pirate bases, illegal weapons manufacturers, slave trading operations, and terrorist groups that your various military forces have been unable to eliminate." He looked around the table, meeting each ambassador's eyes. "Earth proposes to solve these problems." The room became very quiet. Everyone remembered what had happened the last time the humans offered to solve someone's problems. Elder Seraphim of the Ethereal Collective was the first to find his voice. "What exactly are you proposing?" Li Dongwu smiled his usual pleasant smile. "A mutual defense agreement. Earth will provide security services to any council member who requests them. In exchange, those species will provide Earth with preferential trade agreements, resource access, and technological sharing. And if we refuse? Asked Forthak of the Krell, though his question sounded more curious than defiant. Then you continue handling your security problems the same way you have been handling them, Kim So-young replied cheerfully. We're simply offering an alternative for species that would prefer more effective solutions. Ambassador Veshka studied the holographic display carefully. The red dots representing galactic threats were scattered everywhere. But she noticed something interesting about their positions. They were all in locations that would be easy for Earth forces to reach, but difficult for the local species to defend. How would this defense agreement work in practice? She asked. Park Hyeon-soo changed the holographic display to show Earth's military doctrine. The presentation was terrifyingly simple. Phase 1. Immediate response to any threat against our allies, he explained. Earth fleet units will engage hostile forces within 6 hours of any attack. Phase 2. Complete elimination of the threat. Source. We do not negotiate with pirates, terrorists, or other criminal organizations. We remove them. Phase 3. Establishment of permanent security in the affected region to prevent future problems. The display showed examples of each phase in action. Earth warships appeared at threatened locations with impossible speed. Enemy forces were not captured or negotiated with. They simply ceased to exist. Afterwards, Earth security stations were established to ensure the problems never returned. This seems very comprehensive, said Zithmer nervously. Earth believes in solving problems permanently, Lee replied. Temporary solutions just create bigger problems later. Veltar of the Ethereal Collective raised a concern that everyone was thinking but no one wanted to voice. What guarantee do we have that Earth's security forces will not eventually turn against the species they are supposed to protect? The question hung in the air like a physical presence. This was the heart of every species' fear about the humans. They were too powerful to fight, but also too dangerous to trust completely. Lee Dongwoo stood up and walked to the center of the room. For a moment, he looked almost sad. Elder Veltar, he said quietly, 6 months ago, your species tried to destroy Earth's position in this galaxy through economic warfare. You froze our trade credits, corrupted our shipping manifests, and convinced our potential allies to avoid us? Veltar's ethereal form flickered with embarrassment and fear. We could have responded by destroying your communication networks, collapsing your financial systems, and leaving your people unable to coordinate their civilization, Lee continued. Instead, we invited you to dinner and showed you why cooperation was a better choice than conflict. He looked around the room at all the assembled ambassadors. Every species in this room has tested us in some way. The Krell tried military intimidation. The Ethereals tried economic manipulation. Others tried political isolation, technological sabotage, or simple diplomatic rudeness. In every case, Park Hyeon-soo added, we could have responded with overwhelming force. In every case, we chose to demonstrate our capabilities instead of using them destructively. Kim So-young pulled up a new display showing galactic trade statistics. Since Earth joined the galactic community, total trade volume has increased by 43%. Piracy is down 78%. Military conflicts have decreased by 91%. We are not here to conquer you, Lee said firmly. We are here to create a galaxy where everyone can prosper without constantly looking over their shoulders for threats. But, Park Hyeon-soo added in his underground thunder voice, we will only protect species that choose to be our allies. Neutrality is acceptable, hostility is not. The vote was unanimous. Over the next hour, every species represented at the Council formally requested Earth's protection under the Mutual Defense Agreement. The terms were generous, but non-negotiable. Earth would handle all external security threats. In exchange, the allied species would provide resources, technology, and preferential trade status as the meeting ended and the various ambassadors prepared to leave. Daeshka found herself walking beside Lee Dongwoo toward the exit, just as she had months earlier after their first confrontation with the Krell. Ambassador Lee, she said quietly, may I ask you something? Of course, you've gotten everything you wanted. Trade access, resource rights, military supremacy. Was this always your plan? Li Dongwu paused at the doorway and looked back at the Great Hall, where the galaxy's most powerful species had just voluntarily submitted to Earth's protection. Ambassador Veshka, he said gently. 6 months ago, you asked me if we had a fleet powerful enough to destroy the Krell home system. Do you remember what I told you? You said that was the wrong question. The right question was, why would we need a fleet? Li smiled at the memory. The answer is that we don't need a fleet to control this galaxy. We just needed you to understand that we could build one if necessary. But you did build a fleet. We've seen your warships. Yes, we built a fleet, but not for conquest. We built it so that no one else would need to. Veshka thought about this as they walked through the station's corridors. Round them, aliens from dozens of species moved peacefully about their business, no longer worried about pirates, wars, or territorial disputes. So what happens now? She asked. Now we build something better, Li replied. A galaxy where strength protects the weak instead of preying on them, where trade benefits everyone instead of just the most powerful, where conflicts are resolved through negotiation instead of violence. And if someone refuses to participate in this better galaxy, Li Dongwu's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind his eyes. Then they will discover what happens to species that threaten the peace and prosperity of our allies, he said quietly, as Deshka watched the human ambassador walk away. She realized that the galaxy had not gained new members 6 months ago. It had gained new management. The apex predators had. The apex predators had arrived, established their territory, and settled into their role at the top of the food chain. But unlike previous dominant species, the humans had chosen to be protectors instead of hunters. The galaxy was safer than it had been in centuries. It was also more prosperous, more stable, and more united than ever before. But everyone understood the price of that safety and prosperity. Humans would protect them from external threats, solve their problems, and ensure galactic peace. In exchange, they would never again have to wonder who was really in charge. As Kim So-young filed her final report to Earth Command that evening, she summarized humanity's first year in galactic politics with characteristic directness. Mission accomplished. The galaxy now understands that Earth didn't send diplomats. To join their community, we sent apex predators to establish a new order. The previous system of competing civilizations has been replaced with a single, stable hierarchy. Resistance has been minimal and largely symbolic. Most species have chosen cooperation over conflict, which was always our preferred outcome. Recommendation: continue current policies. The galaxy is learning to appreciate the benefits of having humanity at the top of the food chain. Peace through superior firepower remains the most effective diplomatic strategy. She paused before adding her final line. The suits and handshakes are working perfectly. The claws and teeth remain ready for anyone who needs a more direct demonstration. Outside her window, alien ships move peacefully through space under the protection of Earth's invisible but omnipresent fleet. The galaxy had found its new apex predators, and after 6 months of testing, it had learned to be grateful for their restraint. The age of human dominance had begun not with conquest, but with the simple demonstration that conquest was unnecessary when cooperation was so much more profitable for everyone involved, especially for the apex predators who no longer needed to hunt.